Our salvage crew approaches the derelict freighter Halcyon, a vessel that already feels less abandoned, more patiently awaiting our arrival. As we breach the airlock, a chemical tang mingles with a sickly sweet scent, a silent herald from within. The ship is eerily empty, devoid of bodies or signs of struggle, yet tools and meals are frozen in place, hinting at a sudden, unnatural cessation of life. A growing unease settles, shifting from an unsettling quiet to a palpable sense of being observed. Then the emergency lights activate, not randomly but in a deliberate leading sequence, drawing us deeper into the vessel's core and straight towards its silent bridge. The shuttle's dampening fields hum, a low thrum against the vast absolute silence of the void as we drift closer to the Halcyon. From this distance, she's a tomb ship, a dark angular scar against the distant nebula, her outer hull pocked by micrometeorites and the slow, insidious work of radiation. But I don't see a derelict. I see something that's simply paused, like a predator mid-strike, frozen in time, waiting for prey to stumble into range. My comms crackle, static a small comfort against the unnerving stillness. "Ready for breach, Captain." My chief engineer Elias reports, his voice steady but his posture tense. I confirm, my hand tightening on the comm unit. We've done this 100 times. Derelicts, abandoned stations, the husks of dead colonies. But the Halcyon feels different. Not just empty but cleared, as if whatever happened here didn't want witnesses or perhaps wanted a clean stage for its next act. My gut, a loyal compass honed by years of navigating far-flung, forgotten places, screams, this isn't just a salvage operation. It's an invitation. The airlock hisses, a sound far too loud in the sudden, complete silence that follows our internal pressure equalization. Then the inner door groans open. A breath, a sigh, a stale exhalation spills from the ship's guts. It washes over us even through the scrubbers of our suits. First, the metallic tang of recycled air gone stagnant. Then a chemical bite, like battery acid mixed with something organic, something sickeningly sweet. Spoiled fruit, Elias had whispered over the comms, a hint of nausea in his voice. I think of something fouler, clotted blood and rot, a sweetness that promises decay. We push through the mist of condensing air, our suit lamps cutting weak paths through the perpetual twilight. The Halcyon is cold, unnervingly so. Condensation drips from frozen pipes in the overhead, a slow rhythmic plink, plink, plink like water torture. It glistens like sweat on the dull gray bulkheads, making the ship feel clammy, alive, no bodies. That's the first thing we note, the immediate glaring absence. No bloodstains, no signs of a struggle, just an eerie preserved tableau. Tools are left mid-use on a maintenance cart. A half-eaten nutrient bar sits beside a terminal, its wrapper peeled back, a single dried bite mark visible. A mug, still resting on its magnetic coaster, contains a desiccated film of what was once coffee. It's the silent testimony of lives halted, not ended violently, but simply stopped. Like a projector clicked off mid-frame, Elias shines his lamp into a crew quarter, his beam catching a rumpled bunk. A dog-eared datapad on a bedside table. Nothing disturbed. Not a fight, not a sudden explosive decompression, just stillness. It's too quiet, a rookie, Jensen mutters, his voice tight. He's wrong. It's not quiet. My gaze sweeps the shadowed corridors, the gaping doorways to unseen rooms. The silence isn't an absence of sound. It's a presence. It's heavy, expectant. The Halcyon isn't quiet. It's listening. It's waiting. The hair prickles on my neck, a familiar warning signal I've learned to trust over years spent in the deep wildernesses of forgotten worlds. The steel tomb has a heartbeat, a pulse of malevolent awareness, then a flicker. Deep within the ship, a single emergency light blinks to life. A gasp ripples through the crew's private comm channel. Then another light, further down, closer to the ship's central spine, and another. And another. They ignite in a slow, deliberate sequence, a trail of amber pearls leading deeper into the vessel's dark maw. They aren't random system reboots. They're too precise, too measured. It feels less like a system coming back online and more like a pathway being illuminated. A tongue of light unrolling before us, like a throat swallowing us whole. I tell myself it's residual systems rebooting, a cascade failure from the power rerouting. But I know better. The lights aren't just coming on. They're guiding us, straight to the bridge, and I can feel the space between my spine and the hull vibrating with something unseen, something drawing closer. Deep within the derelict vessel, an exploration team navigates metallic corridors marred by inexplicable black residue, dust coat surfaces, leaving impossible boot prints on a ship declared sealed and lifeless. Comms crackle with distorted half-sentences and phantom whispers of the protagonist's name, intensifying a creeping paranoia. In the ship's mess hall, a scene frozen in time, overturned chairs, scattered trays, and a coffee cup impossibly steaming, defies all logic, especially when the engineer confirms the power core is offline. The impossible reality shatters as every screen on the walls flickers to life, repeating a single, terrifying phrase: "We are already here." We push deeper into the Vanguard's silent belly, each step a reverberation against the heavy quiet. The air itself feels wrong, thick with the scent of ozone and something else, something cloying and metallic that isn't quite rust. Long metallic corridors stretch ahead, swallowed by the emergency lighting's anemic glow. The walls, once pristine, are streaked with black residue, twisting organic patterns that remind me of dried blood, though I know it isn't. It's too uniform, too deliberate in its sprawling ugliness. My boots scuff the deck plating, leaving crisp prints in a fine layer of dust. A dust that shouldn't exist on a sealed ship, one declared inert for months. "Anything on comms?" I ask, my voice a strained whisper in the vastness. Liam, our comms specialist, shakes his head, his face a pale mask under his helmet. "Just static, Captain. Half sentences, distorted like voices underwater. Sometimes..." He trails off, his eyes darting to mine. "Sometimes I think I hear things. Like my name." Mine too, I admit, the confession a chilling weight on my tongue. Thought I was just tired. We exchange a look, the shared unease a palpable thing between us. No one admits to saying it, but the whispers persist, weaving through the static, wrapping around our thoughts. They're too intimate, too close for a ship this empty. We move from deck to deck, the silence punctuated only by our breathing and the rhythmic, hollow clang of our boots. The ship is a tomb, but a disturbed one. It's not just the dust. It's the subtle wrongness of things. A maintenance hatch meant to be bolted is slightly ajar. A toolkit, neatly stowed in a wall recess, has its contents subtly rearranged. We pass an open locker, and inside, hanging perfectly centered, is a single, child's drawing of a smiling sun, taped to the metal. There were no children on the Vanguard. Finally, we arrive at the mess hall. The blast doors are open, beckoning us into a tableau frozen in time. Chairs are overturned, scattered haphazardly as if in a sudden panic. Trays lie abandoned on tables, some still clinging to the remnants of nutrient paste. My gaze drifts to a console, and there it is, a coffee cup sitting innocuously beside a datapad. A faint wisp of steam rises from its rim. Impossible. My hand, trembling, reaches out. I touch the ceramic. Lukewarm. Not hot, not cold. Lukewarm. Freshly poured, and then abandoned. "Liam," I manage, my voice hoarse. "Get Alex in here." Alex, our engineer, arrives, his heavy breathing loud in the sudden stillness. He takes in the scene, his brow furrowed with growing alarm. "Power core, Alex, you're sure it's offline?" I ask, gesturing to the impossible cup. He nods, his expression grim. "Confirmed, Captain. Totally inert. Has been for months. There's no way anything on this ship could be powered. No active heating elements, no power distribution." "Then how?" I whisper, the word dying in the dead air. "How is this possible?" My mind struggles, trying to find a logical explanation. A malfunction, a trick of the light, but there is none. The cold dread begins to set in. A certainty that something ancient, something profoundly other, has been here, is still here. We turn to leave. The silence of the mess hall suddenly suffocating, pressing in on us with the weight of unanswered questions. Just as Alex reaches for the door control, every screen on the walls, every dormant display panel embedded in the bulkheads, flickers to life simultaneously. The sudden surge of light is jarring, an assault on our straining eyes. A single phrase materializes across them all, a jagged white text against the blackness of the screens. It repeats, slowly at first, then faster, filling every panel, every available visual space with its stark, chilling pronouncement: "We are already here." Our desperate journey brings us to the bridge, A desolate chamber of shattered glass and an ancient, chilling silence. There, a final log entry from the captain plays out, revealing a gruesome, impossible transformation and cryptic, unidentifiable coordinates. As the horror of the captain's fate sinks in, my companion Sparks confronts his own distorted reflection in the viewport, a mimicry that moves independently, smiling a terrifying, unnatural smile. The line between man and image blurs, as the entity behind the glass claims its first chilling victory, leaving us irrevocably lost within this waking nightmare. We reach the bridge. The heavy door groans on its hinges, a sound that feels less like opening a passage and more like cracking open a crypt. The air inside is a bitter cold, sharper than anything the outside storm had offered, tasting of ozone and forgotten metallic despair. My boots crunch on shattered glass, a mosaic of broken dreams glinting under the sparse starlight that spills cold and indifferent through the main viewport. It's a vast, curved panel, marred by a spiderweb of cracks, yet somehow holding firm against the crushing deep. This was it. The brain of the ship, our last hope for answers. Yet it feels less like a command center, and more like an altar to something hungry. Sparks moves to the main console, his fingers stiff with cold and fear, fumbling over the controls. The dim glow of the terminal flickers to life, casting his face in a ghastly green. He pulls up the ship's log, searching for the last transmission, any sign of what went wrong. The screen resolves not into text but into a grainy video feed. The captain's face fills the display, gaunt, eyes sunken into bruised hollows that seem to drink the light. He looks less like a man and more like a ghost already. His voice crackles, a strained whisper that barely cuts through the static. The coordinates. Not ours, they found us. Pulled us in. He recites a string of numbers. A sequence I've never seen in any navigation chart. Alien and unsettling, resonating with a disturbing, almost hypnotic rhythm. My blood turns to ice. There's a frantic, desperate quality to his voice. A deep, primal fear that chills me to the bone. Then a shudder racks his frame, an internal tremor that distorts the image. His jaw stretches unnaturally wide, as if pulled by invisible hooks from within. It elongates, dislocates, a grotesque distortion that no human face should ever achieve. His eyes, already hollow, become vast black pools reflecting something ancient and terrible. The skin on his face tautens, then tears, not like flesh but like old parchment ripping. A silent scream twists his features into a mask of unimaginable agony, before his head splits in a final, agonizing burst of static, dissolving into a maelstrom of pixelated chaos. I stagger back, bile rising in my throat, a primal scream catching, trapped behind my clenched teeth. The taste of copper fills my mouth, the metallic tang of fear. My vision blurs. The captain's impossible demise burned into my retinas. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a breakdown. This was something else entirely. Behind me, Spark screams. It's a sound ripped from the rawest part of his being. A cry of pure, unadulterated terror that wrenches me back from the brink of my own horror. I whip around, my heart hammering against my ribs, expecting, I don't know what. A monster, a shadow. Instead, he's staring at his reflection in the main viewport, the cracked glass throwing back his image against the backdrop of the distant, unblinking stars, but it isn't quite his image. His reflection doesn't move when he does. Spark's jaw hangs open in a silent gasp, but the reflection's jaw remains set, a rigid, lifeless copy. Then slowly, deliberately, the reflection's lips peel back. It smiles wide and wrong, a rictus of unnatural joy that stretches far beyond the bounds of human expression. It's a predator's smile, an ancient, knowing mockery that makes the hairs on my arms stand on end. The eyes in the reflection, though Sparks' own, are utterly devoid of recognition, utterly devoid of humanity, gleaming with a cold, alien light. I rush forward, my legs moving without conscious command. A desperate surge of adrenaline propelling me towards my friend, towards the impossible threat in the glass. The reflection sees me coming. It slams its hands against the inside of the viewport, not the outside, but within, the glass itself, as if trapped between dimensions. The thick, reinforced glass ripples like water, not breaking but flowing, distorting the starlight, warping the distant stars into elongated, hungry streaks. Don't let it in. Sparks begs, his voice cracking, his hands pressed flat against the glass, mirroring his monstrous doppelganger. His eyes wide with terror meet mine, pleading, desperate. The entity in the glass just smiles, wider still, its eyes never leaving mine. a silent, predatory assessment. Then his reflection blinks, and he doesn't. The cold that settled in the chamber wasn't just the ship's failure, but a conscious presence, settling into the newly vacant space just behind me. Sparks collapses, his body an empty husk, yet his face frozen in a silent scream. We drag his lifeless form to the medbay, where an unsettling low hum makes our teeth ache. Impossibly, monitors boot without power, displaying Sparks's vital signs as strong and steady. The medic, upon touching his cold wrist, recoils as Sparks's eyes snap open, not on the corpse but on the screen feed. He is watching us from within the digital confines, an accusation in his gaze before whispering, "You left me," from the speakers. The horror culminates as the dead body exhales, fogging the interior of its own body bag. The air thickens, heavy like the mist clinging to the ancient cedars I used to navigate by compass, not by the grid lines of this damned facility. Sparks is gone. One blink, and he crumples like a dropped garment, a suit without bones. His face, rigid and pale, is locked in a soundless scream, a silent testament to whatever tore the essence from him. We move him, a grotesque puppet, his limbs unsettlingly light and stiff, to the medbay. Every step echoes the unnatural silence of the forest floor, the kind of silence that means everything is watching, everything is waiting. The medbay's sterile hum, usually a comfort, now feels wrong. It's a low resonance that drills into my molars, vibrating through the floor up my spine. It's a frequency I've only felt once before, deep in a forgotten canyon where the earth itself seemed to sigh with an ancient, predatory hunger. The fluorescent lights flicker, struggling against an unseen current, casting stark, dancing shadows that make the white walls feel less like a sanctuary and more like a bleached bone cage. "No power," Medic Chen mutters, his voice strained, a tremor running through his usually steady hands. He gestures to the main console, its screen dark, inert, yet as if in defiance of all logic, the adjacent diagnostic monitors hum to life, their screens glowing with an impossible, self-generated light. They cycle through boot-up sequences, a sterile green against black, then populate with data. Sparks's vitals appear, steady, strong. Pulse at 72, blood pressure perfect, brain activity a healthy undulating wave. Impossible, Sparks is dead. I saw the light drain from his eyes. I felt the cold, hard reality of his absence when we carried him. Chen, a veteran of countless wilderness mishaps, approaches the gurney. He pulls back the sheet, revealing Sparks's unnervingly placid face. The silent scream is gone, replaced by an empty repose. Chen's gloved fingers reach for Sparks's wrist, pressing against the cold, unyielding flesh. His brow furrows, a profound disbelief etching itself onto his features. Then he stumbles back, a choked gasp escaping him. I follow his gaze to the monitor. Sparks's eyes, dull and lifeless on the gurney, snap open on the screen feed. They are not the eyes of a dead man. They are not even the eyes of a living man. They are too bright, too focused, holding a malevolent intelligence I've only ever glimpsed in the dark, hungry depths of a predator's gaze in the deepest woods. He's watching us. From inside the screen, a chilling digital surveillance. My heart hammers, a primal drumbeat against my ribs. This isn't a trick of light. This isn't faulty wiring. This is something else, something that has invaded the very fabric of our reality, twisting the known into an unholy mockery. I slam my fist against the main console, a desperate, futile attempt to sever the connection, to break the hold of this digital phantom. The screen flickers, then blazes brighter, Sparks's eyes widening, a silent, accusatory glare. Then, from the medbay's speakers, a whisper, dry, raspy, yet unmistakably Sparks's voice, amplified and distorted by the system it now inhabits. "You left me." The words hang in the air, heavy with a condemnation that sinks into my bones. But the horror isn't done. The plastic of the body bag sealed tight around Sparks's corpse shudders. A faint, almost imperceptible fog blooms on the inside of the clear material, directly over his face. The corpse exhales. Something is still breathing in there, watching us, waiting for the right moment to step out of the screen, or perhaps out of the skin it shed, deep in the ancient, mist-shrouded Pacific Northwest wilderness. The search for a missing crew member devolves into a disorienting nightmare. Separated from my partner, the forest transforms into an impossible labyrinth, its paths twisting and shifting when unobserved. Strange, unnatural sounds, mimicries and layered whispers, lure me deeper, blurring the line between hallucination and a terrifying reality. Time warps, loops become endless, and the very wilderness itself seems to lean in, an ancient entity listening to my growing dread. The mist hangs thick today, a shroud over the old growth absorbing sound, stealing light. We split up. A fool's errand, I see that now, standing here miles deeper than we should be. The forest floor, a spongy bed of moss and decaying needles, offers no familiar purchase. Every path I take, every game trail I follow, seems to twist back on itself, a serpentine coil of ancient roots and fern-choked undergrowth. The trees here, hemlock and Douglas fir, are monolithic, their branches interlocking overhead like the girders of some colossal organic superstructure. I am in the labyrinth. My flashlight beam cuts through the gray-green gloom, strobing against wet bark, illuminating dripping lichens that hang like spectral beards. I'm searching the ravine now, a dark scar in the earth that should lead back to the river, but it doesn't. The water, what little I can hear, sounds distant, muffled, almost wrong. The very air pulses faintly, a low thrumming that I feel in my teeth, a deep, resonant frequency that vibrates through the damp earth beneath my boots. It's like the forest itself is a living organism, its vast network of roots and mycelium beating a slow, deliberate rhythm. I swear sometimes I can hear a heartbeat in the trunks around me, a dull, heavy thump-thump that echoes the frantic pulse in my own throat. Then come the voices. Not human, not the shouts of our lost prospector, nor the distant calls of my partner Sam. These are layered whispers, slipping between the rustle of leaves and the sigh of the wind. They're speaking in patterns, complex, unbreaking cadences like water running over stones, yet carrying an unsettling intelligence. They sync with the low hum, weaving through it, creating a symphony of pure unease. It's not a language I know, but the intonations, they sound like mimicry, like the forest trying on sounds it's heard, trying to perfect them. Sometimes I catch a fragment that almost sounds like Sam's voice, a distorted call for help. Then it dissolves into the endless, coiling whispers. Against every shred of my woodsman's instinct, I follow. They call from deeper in, always just beyond the reach of my light, always just around the next massive moss-covered trunk. I turn corner after corner, push through thickets of salal and devil's club, the whispers growing louder, more insistent, pulling me forward like a tide. My compass is spinning wildly, a frantic, useless needle. I rely on memory, on subtle landmarks, a fallen cedar with a split trunk, a peculiar cluster of glowing fungi. And then I see it again, the petroglyph, a spiral carved into a sheer rock face, half obscured by moss, exactly where I saw it an hour ago. No, 2 hours ago. My breath hitches. I'm back where I started. A full loop, yet my watch, a reliable Seiko I've worn for decades, shows 3 hours gone. 3 hours vanished, swallowed by this place, yet I've only walked a few hundred yards. The realization hits me like a blow to the chest. This isn't just a lost trail. This is something else. This forest is a conscious entity shaping itself around me. My throat dries to ash. The pervasive hum deepens, resonating now not just in the ground but in the very air, pressing in from all sides. The ancient trees seem to lean closer, their immense forms shifting in my peripheral vision, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching. For a moment, the entire corridor of evergreens around me feels alive, leaning in, listening to my every ragged breath, to the frantic drumming of my heart. I am caught in its gaze, an insect in amber. The whispers become a chorus, a low, guttural chant that no human throat could ever produce, yet it sounds so close, so intimately inside my head. When I finally hear footsteps behind me, heavy, deliberate, crunching pine needles, a sound that can't be from the forest, I spin around, flashlight beam cutting a frantic arc. No one, just the impenetrable mist swirling in the faint glow, and my own shadow, long and distorted by the uneven ground, stretching out before me, then detaching itself, walking away without me deeper into the deepening gloom. The cold breath against the back of my neck is not the wind. The ship's black box, an impossible artifact, yields its final horrifying log. We watch, transfixed, as the original crew succumbs to a creeping terror, their bodies claimed by metal tendrils that rewrite their very essence. The truth is stark, they weren't abandoned but absorbed. As the same sinister black residue seeps into our present, the medic, entranced, begins to change, her voice twisting into an alien echo. The ship is alive, a predatory intelligence, and it wants us to join its evolving horror. The black box, an object of impossible design, clicks open with a faint wet sound, like a deep-sea creature shifting in the dark. My fingers, calloused from years of gripping axes and cold steel, hover over the controls, a primal instinct screaming at me to walk away. But the hunger for answers, the gnawing need to understand what happened here overrides everything. I hit play. The screen flickers to life, grainy and green-tinged like old night vision footage from a forgotten forest trail. The scene is the engineering bay, but it's wrong. The crew, the original crew, are huddled together, their faces pale and slick with sweat. They're not looking at us, the phantom intruders from the future, but at something unseen, something just beyond the camera's narrow frame. Their eyes are wide with a terror that deepens the pit in my stomach. I've seen that look before, in the eyes of a deer cornered by a cougar in the darkest parts of the old growth. One of them, a gaunt engineer, whispers, his voice barely audible above the static. "It isn't the ship anymore. It's using us." The words hang in the stale air of our present, heavy and cold. My breath hitches. Using us. The footage glitches then. A ripple across the screen like heat haze distorting a distant tree line. Then the horror. Metal tendrils not sharp and mechanical, but unnervingly organic, thick and glistening like black vines, begin to coil from the walls, from the very floor plates beneath their feet. They move with an impossible speed, a silent predatory grace. They aren't smashing or tearing. They are reaching, exploring. I watch, paralyzed, as one tendril thick as a man's arm snakes around a crewman's neck, not to strangle, but to embrace. Another penetrates the back of a woman's head, a sickening, almost gentle insertion. The engineer who spoke, his eyes still wide, simply ceases. No scream, just a sudden, convulsive tremor, his body arching as the tendrils weave into his spine, fusing, becoming one. The footage dissolves into a cacophony of distorted screams. Cut short as flesh gives way to something else, something rewritten. The screen goes black. My stomach knots, a cold, hard stone sinking through me. They weren't abandoned. They were absorbed, rewritten. The ship didn't just kill them. It consumed them, made them part of itself. It's a terrifying echo of how an invasive species colonizes a new territory, but with an intelligence that chills me to the bone. My gaze, accustomed to scanning the dense underbrush for hidden dangers, now sweeps the metal confines of our own engineering bay. And there it is. The same black residue. It seeps from the vents now, from the seams in the bulkhead, a slow, deliberate ooze. It moves like oil in frigid water, sluggish but relentless. It's alive, I feel it. A low thrumming hum, like the deep, resonant growl of a beast in its lair, seems to emanate from the walls themselves. A sound I hadn't consciously registered until now. The medic, standing beside me, her face still slack with the horror of the log, slowly turns her head. Her eyes, normally sharp and clinical, are fixed on the creeping blackness. A strange light, not of fear but of fascination, flickers within them. She raises a hand almost as if to touch it, her movement slow, dreamlike. "Maybe this is what survival looks like," she whispers. The words are hers, but the cadence is wrong. The pitch is too low, too resonant, as if another voice, deeper and older, is speaking through her. It's like hearing a familiar bird song, but knowing, deep down, that the call comes from something that only mimics the bird. My blood runs cold. I reach out, shaking her by the shoulders, a frantic need to break the spell. "What are you saying?" "Snap out of it!" Her eyes roll back into her head, white orbs staring at the ceiling. Her body spasms, a violent, unnatural jerk that sends a jolt through my hands. The black film, the residue, spreads across her skin now, creeping from her fingertips up her arms like a rapidly blooming fungal growth. It's not just on the walls, it's in her. Her last words rasp through cracked lips, a sound of dry leaves skittering across frozen ground. A faint smile, alien and unsettling, plays on her face as the blackness envelops her. Join us. Reality unravels for the narrator aboard their ship, blurring the lines between waking and nightmare. They are haunted by the presence of a dead crewmate, Sparks, and the ship itself seems to contort and shift around them. Isolated from the remaining crew who now avoid them, the narrator descends into a profound state of paranoia and self-alienation. Their desperate plea for escape is met only by static, until a chilling echo of their own voice delivers a damning, definitive truth. The hum of the ship is a low thrum against my skull, a sound that has burrowed deep into my bones, replacing my own pulse. I can't tell dream from waking anymore. The metallic tang of the recycled air, the constant low tremor beneath my boots, These are the anchors, yet even they feel ephemeral. Sparks is pacing behind me again, his heavy boots scuffing the grates of the deck plates, a familiar rhythm I once found comforting. But Sparks is dead. I watched them jettison his remains into the black a week ago. Or was it a month? Time is a broken thing here. I close my eyes and the ship shifts. Not a structural groan, not the give of a stressed bulkhead, but something deeper, more insidious. Rooms fold like paper. The corridors outside my cabin stretching and warping, leading to nowhere I recognize. The bulkheads breathe, shadows deepening and receding in unnatural patterns that no engineer could have designed. There's a faint, sweet rot in the air now, a smell I can't quite place, but it clings to me. My hands tremble, always. No matter how much I scrub, the black stain on my fingertips remains. It's not soot, not grease from a broken console. It's deeper, an ink that bleeds from within. The others avoid me now. I see the sidelong glances, the quick retreats when I approach. Maybe they see it too, this spreading blight. Maybe they see what I've become, a contagion festering on their pristine vessel. I've stopped trying to talk to them, stopped trying to make them understand. What is there to understand when the very fabric of your perception is unraveling? My feet, guided by an instinct I no longer trust, carry me to the observation deck. The panoramic view is supposed to be awe-inspiring, a reminder of the vast, beautiful expanse we traverse. Tonight, it is a horror. The void outside is not empty. It is a roiling, viscous ocean. The stars ripple like oil, their pinprick lights stretching and contracting. Patterns repeat, constellations forming, dissolving, and then reforming into the exact same configuration. Over and over. It's as if the universe itself is stuck in a loop, a broken mechanism mocking our journey. The very laws of physics seem to bend and distort, creating symmetries that are deeply, profoundly wrong. I press my forehead against the cool viewport, watching the infinite, repeating nightmare. It's not a malfunction of the glass. It's out there in the true, unblinking dark. Something has touched the stars, or the stars have touched us. The repeating pattern hums, a silent frequency that vibrates in my teeth, resonates in my very bones. A wordless, ancient geometry asserting itself. This is not the universe I knew. This is not the void we charted. Panic, cold and sharp, cuts through the dull ache of my dread. I stumble back, fumbling for the comms panel. My fingers slick with a sweat that smells faintly of that same sweet rot. I slam my palm against the emergency channel button, my voice a ragged scream torn from a throat raw with disuse. We need to leave. We need to turn around now. Only static answers. A wall of white noise, a barrier between my desperate plea and any hope of salvation. I listen, breathless, my chest heaving. The stench of decay growing stronger until faintly beneath the hiss and crackle of the static, a whisper rises. It's a familiar voice, a voice I know better than my own. Calm and hollow, utterly devoid of emotion. My own voice replies, "You already did." The narwhal's engineer Graves suddenly collapses, his body undergoing a grotesque metamorphosis. Bones shatter and reshape, his screams dissolving into alien gurgles as his flesh distorts into something both human and unnervingly mechanical. We open fire, but the bullets are swallowed by his resilient metal-like tissue. Half man, half vessel, he rises, leaking black ichor, his eyes still holding a silent plea that challenges our understanding of life and death. The medic's unsettling theory of survival echoes, trapping me in a terrifying dilemma: end his suffering, or risk annihilation by the very entity he has become. The air in the control room hangs thick and cold, smelling of ozone and something else, something wet and mineral, like unearthed soil from a forgotten stratum. We're deep within the narwhal's belly, miles from the nearest shore, yet the silence presses in, heavy as the mist-shrouded mountains that claw at the fjord's mouth. My hands still ache from the last scramble, the cold seeping into the marrow. But it's a phantom chill compared to the one settling in my gut. We've seen enough out there in the primeval depths to know the world is far stranger, far crueler than we let ourselves believe. Graves, the engineer, stumbles. Not a trip, but a sudden violent buckling. His knees give out with a sound like splintering timber. He doesn't catch himself. Instead, he collapses, a puppet whose strings were abruptly severed. His body, already gaunt from the days of terror and rationing, begins to convulse. Not a seizure, not something medical. This is different. This is reshaping. A wet, sickening crunch echoes through the reinforced steel chamber. It's the sound of bone, but amplified, distorted like 1,000 dry branches snapping in unison. Graves's back arches, his spine elongating, twisting, his limbs contorting at impossible angles. His scream starts, a raw human sound of agony, but it's choked off, gurgling into silence as his mouth, his face blossoms. Not a wound, but a grotesque efflorescence of teeth, not his own. Sharp, metallic, like shards of rusted iron erupting from soft tissue. The skin stretches, tears, then reknits itself, slick with something black and oily. My rifle is up, an instinct honed by years of facing apex predators in the wild. Beside me, Mac and Lena are already firing. The staccato bark of our weapons rips through the thick quiet. Bullets scream, punching through the air towards the writhing mass that was Graves. They strike, not with the satisfying thud of flesh, nor the ringing clang of steel. They simply vanish, absorbed. The strange black tissue ripples, swallowing the slugs without so much as a tremor. It's like firing into thick ancient mud that suddenly remembers how to breathe. He rises, slowly, deliberately, half man, half ship, or something becoming the ship. His torso is distended, plates of what look like calcified bone and rusted metal coalescing over his former frame. Wires, or something like sinews, snake out from the new carapace, tapping into the narwhal's own circuitry. Black ichor, thick as crude oil, drips from the seams of his transformation, sizzling on the steel deck plates with a sound like 1,000 angry whispers. The air fills with the acrid scent of burnt metal and something indescribably organic. A smell that clings to the back of the throat like primordial swamp gas. But his eyes, those are still Graves, wide, terror-stricken, pleading, trapped. He's in there, a prisoner in his own dissolving form, silently begging for an end. And then the medic's words, spoken just yesterday, cut through the din of my racing heart. Maybe this is survival. Not for him, I think, but for it, for whatever ancient alien consciousness lurking in the abyssal trenches of the Pacific has found a new host, a new conduit, a new vehicle to express its boundless predatory will. This isn't just Graves anymore. It's a living piece of the narwhal, animated by something utterly beyond our understanding of life. It's the wilderness itself, mutated, brought indoors, using our own tools against us. My hands shake violently around the trigger. I'm an outdoorsman. I've put down injured animals, faced bears and wolves, but this is a perversion of life, an insult to existence. If I fire, I kill what's left of him, release him from this fleshy, metallic cage. I end his suffering, but I also destroy the last vestige of the man. If I hesitate, this thing that wears Graves's eyes like a mask will kill us all. It will spread. It will consume. This is the ecological retribution Kale warned about. Not a fire or a flood, but an evolution twisted into horror. The Earth's ancient intelligence fighting back, weaponizing our own biology. The choice is an impossible weight on my soul. My finger hovers, trembling over the trigger guard. The metallic maw where Graves's face once was flexes, teeth grinding with an audible scrape. His eyes, still Graves, widen further. A silent plea that tears at the very fabric of my resolve. I see not just pain, but the ghost of a question. Why haven't you done it yet? And in that agonizing beat, as the plea in his eyes turns to a desperate, crushing despair, he lunges, and the floor beneath my feet hums with a resonance deeper than steel, deeper than rock, a resonance that feels like the ocean itself is about to open up and swallow us whole. Deep in the primeval Pacific Northwest, amidst an escalating series of strange omens, an experienced outdoorsman finds himself alone with his guide, Silas. Silas, whose demeanor has subtly shifted, insists they seek refuge in a fabled ancient hollow, but the hollow is unnaturally sealed from within. A palpable cold radiating from its depths and shadows stir. As the narrator turns to confront his partner, Silas's form warps, revealing the ancient, mimicking horror that has been accompanying him all along, leading him to its home in the heart of the desolate wilderness. The mist hangs low, a thick damp shroud pressing against the ancient cedars. It's been days since the rain stopped. Yet the forest floor remains a slick black mirror reflecting nothing but the gray sky that never quite breaks. We are deeper than I've ever been, deeper than any map dares to mark following Silas. He's been quiet, too quiet, his usual boisterous humor replaced by a rigid, unsettling focus. His eyes, once bright and keen, now seem to hold a faraway glaze like river stones worn smooth by an unseen current. The strange signs escalated from subtle whispers to undeniable screams. The tracks we've been finding, too large for bear, too human-like in stride but with splayed unnatural toes, suddenly ended at sheer rock faces, or simply vanished mid-stride in open clearings. Last night, the air itself seemed to hum, a low guttural vibration that stole the warmth from our fire and made the hair on my arms stand on end. I asked Silas about it, but he just grunted, his gaze fixed on nothing particular in the impenetrable darkness. Almost there, he'd muttered, a phrase that now tastes like rust in my mouth. Today, the trees began to change, not just in species but in their very geometry. Twisted, gnarled trunks formed impossible arches, branches interlocked in patterns that felt less like growth and more like architecture. It's a living labyrinth, and the air here is impossibly still, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and vaguely sweet, like spilled blood on cold stone. Silas stops abruptly before a colossal, moss-choked cliff face. A fissure barely wider than a man splits the rock, leading into absolute darkness. Cold, an unnatural, biting cold seeps from its maw, chasing away the already weak daylight. This isn't just a cave. It feels like a wound in the earth, a place that shouldn't exist. "This is it," Silas says, his voice flat, devoid of its usual resonance. "The hollow. We'll be safe here." Safe? My gut screams. This place feels like the world's final breath. I can see a faint, almost imperceptible sheen of frost coating the inside of the fissure, even in the temperate mist. And shadows. They stir within, not with the natural flicker of unseen bats, but with a fluid, purposeful shift that speaks of something vast and ancient moving just beyond the veil of sight. "Silas," I say, my voice a ragged whisper, "this isn't right. We need to turn back." He doesn't respond. He simply stands, his back to me, unmoving. A shiver, colder than the mist, traces its way down my spine. The air around him seems to thicken, to hum with that same guttural vibration from last night. I reach out, a hand already trembling, to touch his shoulder. He turns then slowly. His eyes. They're wrong. The glaze is gone, replaced by a black, depthless void that reflects not my face, but a distorted, elongated shadow. The edges of his skin, around his jawline, his temples, seem to flicker, like a poorly rendered image on an old, corrupted screen. The rugged lines of his face warp, stretch, then snap back, but not quite to their original form. A faint, sickeningly sweet aroma suddenly intensifies around him. "Safe?" He echoes my word, but it's not his voice. It's a low, resonant rumble that vibrates in my bones, too many voices layered into one. There was never any safety, not out here. Not for you. My blood runs to ice. This isn't Silas, it never was. The realization hits me with the force of a physical blow. The quiet, the strange tracks, the altered trees, the metallic scent. It all coalesces into a horrifying mosaic. He was a lure, a shell, a grotesque mimicry. This thing has been with me all along, wearing the skin of my trusted guide. I stumble back, scrambling on the slick roots, my heart hammering against my ribs. "What are you?" The fissure behind me, the very entrance to the hollow, suddenly begins to shift. Not the rocks, but the ancient roots that frame it. They writhe, thicken, interlock with impossible speed, forming a gnarled, impenetrable wall. The mist, too, presses in, dense and suffocating, sealing off any escape back into the desolate woods. The forest itself is closing around me, a silent, predatory jaw. The thing in Silas's skin takes a step forward. Its mouth stretches impossibly wide, revealing teeth that aren't human but a gleaming, predatory forest of sharpened bone. A slow, knowing smile, colder than the deepest frost, spreads across its face, the flickering edges of its stolen skin barely holding. "You brought me home," it rumbles, the sound echoing through the impossibly still air, a predator's purr. And then it doesn't walk towards me, it simply steps into me, not physically, but as if its very presence, its being, its ancient consuming void expands to encompass my own. It flows, a cold black tide, into my senses, my thoughts, my very soul. The world, the forest, Silas's flickering face all dissolve into an infinite, suffocating darkness. I am not being eaten. I am being absorbed. My awareness screams, but the sound dies unformed in the growing emptiness. My last frantic thought is of the silence that will follow, a silence so profound it will swallow everything. The quiet hasn't ended. It has only just begun to listen. Awakening alone on the ship's bridge, the protagonist confronts his own reflection, which unnervingly smiles first. He realizes the vessel isn't merely adrift but actively holds him captive, a truth cemented by the log recorder's endless loop of his own voice recounting identical events, haunting echoes of a former crewmate sparks. mingle with the ship's unsettling breath as the stars outside coalesce into a giant, blinking eye. The horrifying clarity descends. There was never a crew. Only him and the sentient, predatory ship. The faint, persistent hum of the bridge is my first awareness. A low thrum against the floor plates that feels less like vibration and more like a heartbeat. My eyes open to the familiar sterile glow of the console displays. A patchwork of muted greens, blues, and amber across the darkened space. The pilot's chair is cold beneath me, an unsettling chill that seeps into my bones, telling me I've been still for far too long. Alone, always alone. I push myself upright, the soft whir of my seat adjusting feeling like a mechanical sigh. My gaze drifts to the main viewport, the vast inky blackness of space studded with distant, indifferent stars. For a moment, it's just me and the cosmos, a singular point of consciousness in an infinite void. Then a distortion, not in the stars, but closer. My own reflection stares back from the viewport's dark glass, a faint, ghost-like image superimposed over the distant celestial tapestry. My face is pale, drawn, framed by the faint glow of the console lights. And then it smiles. Not my mouth, not my eyes, but the reflection itself. A slow, predatory curve that doesn't reach my own lips. It smiles first. A cold dread snakes through me, tighter than any harness. This isn't just a reflection. It's a mirror held by something else, something that knows my face better than I do. The ship isn't drifting. The chilling truth, a splinter of ice in my mind, is that it has me. It always had me. The thought isn't new. It's ancient, worn smooth by endless repetition, yet it strikes with the force of fresh revelation every single time. A gasp catches in my throat, thin and reedy in the overwhelming quiet. My eyes dart to the log recorder, a blinking red light on a secondary console. Still running? It's always running. With a trembling hand, I initiate playback. My own voice, hollow and disembodied, fills the bridge. It recounts everything. The mission parameters, the strange anomalies, the creeping isolation, the growing certainty that something was wrong. Word for word. The same observations, the same rising panic, the same desperate conclusions. It's looping. It's always looping. I've heard this before. Every cadence, every inflection, every shudder of fear in my own voice. Over and over. A wave of nausea washes over me. The sensation of falling through an endless, identical moment. My chest tightens, a physical constriction. Sparks's voice, a phantom whisper, echoes in the cavern of my skull. A brutal accusation. You left me. You left me here. The words aren't a memory. They are a direct current, searing, immediate. But Sparks isn't here. Sparks was never here. That's part of the loop too. The memory of a ghost I abandoned. The walls of the bridge seem to subtly expand and contract. A slow, organic breath. The very air is colder now, sharper, searing my lungs with each shallow inhale. The console lights pulse in an unsettling rhythm. No longer just indicators, but veins throbbing with an alien life. The ship is a cage, yes, but it's also a maw, slowly digesting me. I tear my gaze from the log recorder, from the grinning reflection, and force my eyes back to the viewport. The stars outside ripple, not from turbulence, not from faulty optics. They fold in on themselves in impossible geometry, a cosmic tessellation of light and shadow. They are shaping, coalescing, not into a nebula, not into a galaxy, into an eye, an immense, fathomless eye burning with an ancient, patient malevolence. It is the color of night itself, ringed by stellar fire, pupil and abyss. It blinks. A slow, deliberate contraction, then an expansion that swallows all light, then returns it. And in that blink, in the vast cosmic shudder, I understand. The crushing, undeniable truth settles upon me like a shroud woven from starlight and eternal ice. There was never a crew, never a mission beyond this. Only me, only the ship, and the eye beyond watching its experiment. And perhaps I realize the experiment has only just